If you want to learn more about the Genshin Impact character Diluc, then you have come to the right place! I want this video to kind of be like a wiki on Diluc with lots of info, although an actual wiki has, the benefit of being able to change and edit when new info is added, but hopefully this won't be too outdated in the future, because new info will definitely be added, but this video will still be going in-depth into the character of Diluc Ragnvindr. That's how I say Ragnvindr, by the way. If it's off, or if it's a little off, I apologize, I'm not great at pronunciation. Case in point. Fucking hell. Also, spoilers for a lot of things involving Diluc. If you want to see a list of all of the lore sources, it's in the description in case you don't want to be spoiled for something. And lastly, I'm sorry I have to do this, but 3% are subscribed, a lot aren't, so subscribe, it's free. Well, for the most part, I suppose. You'd have to have internet and the device that you're using this on. Also, I don't really upload that often, so you could subscribe, turn on your bell notification, and then I upload, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy. I remember him. Oh, yeah, let's watch this video. Where am I going with this? Anyways, let's just roll the intro. Shine true. The motto of the famed Dawn Winery. The meaning of this phrase is widely contested among the denizens of Mondstadt, but to Diluc, there is a clear and simple meaning. Evil cannot go unpunished. Never settle for mediocrity. Never forget that the dawn will one day come. Although,
for dawn to come, there must be those who dare to pierce the darkness with their light.
Diluc Ragnvindr is an inhabitant of Mondstadt. He is the owner of the Dawn Winery, which is responsible for monopolizing the wine industry in Mondstadt, making him the wealthiest person in Mondstadt. He has a huge stream of revenue and networks of information in the form of tavern patrons' gossip right at his fingertips. In a way, he is the uncrowned king of Mondstadt. Unbeknownst to the residents of Mondstadt, Diluc is also the mysterious Darknight Hero, a guardian that appears in the middle of the night defending Mondstadt from unseen evil.
Diluc is red and black, hot and cold.
Diluc is a tall man with pale skin. His most striking feature is his bright hair and bright red eyes. His hair is usually tied in a ponytail. He canonically is one of the most eye-catching gentlemen in Mondstadt. He has been noted as appearing unhappy and rarely smiling. He usually has an unamused, exasperated, or almost bored expression on his face. Diluc has an affinity towards darker clothes. The outfit he normally wears is called the Darknight Blaze, a smart and tasteful suit fit for a nobleman. The outfit is mostly darker colors, shades of black or brown. He wears an elegant jacket decorated with some golden designs and tassels with fur on the end of the jacket, a black undershirt, a long white vest, and an ascot with a red gem. His vision is attached to his belt with a small chain hanging from his thigh. He wears dark boots with multiple buckles. Lastly, he wears a pair of black gloves with the palm side being red. He has also been seen wearing a very fancy white jacket on the cover of chapter 14 of the Genshin Impact manga, and in chapter 16 when he is tending at the Angel Share, he is wearing a black suit with a white vest with his hair tied higher than usual. As the Darknight Hero in the manga, he still wears darker clothes but adds a tattered hooded cloak with a mask which resembles an owl. On his left hand he is wearing a fingerless glove with a large red gemstone. This is known as a delusion, which, I don't know, it might be important later on. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.
you have business to attend to? If you have things you want to get done, let me know.
Diluc is a very straightforward and blunt person. He does not like wasting words and is efficient in his conduct.
Not interested in idle chit-chat.
If he dislikes someone or something, he will either be pretty... a voice crack? He'll either be pretty passive-aggressive or openly speak his mind, sometimes in dramatic fashion.
Knights of Favonius, always so inefficient. The Abyss Order, enemies of the human race. I'll be sure to let the Abyss Order know that their blatant disregard for Mondstadt will not go unpunished. I despise them. If I were to choose between eating a cryo slime alive or joining the Fatui, I'd prefer to be crushed to death by a meteorite.
This works in reverse as well. If he likes or respects someone, he will openly show it. Although he has a knack of saying things that are very nice and almost sweet and indicate very much that he likes and cares for this person, but in a very sharp and matter-of-fact tone.
No need for small talk. All that matters is that you were safe last night. Never mind. We don't often get to work together after all.
I'm in the habit of working alone, but I did enjoy having your assistance this time. In the future, if there's anything you ever need, you can come to me for help.
I think the Genshin Impact wiki said it best. On unrelated note, the wiki is very good and helps me out a lot. Anyways, the wiki on Diluc says, despite coming off as bitter and grumpy through his speech, he has a gentle and tender nature, which is just very accurate, and every so often we see this side a little. During the prologue Archon quest, in some instances, he talks quite naturally and casually, telling stories, wondering why having a pet tortoise is strange, and almost kinda gossiping with Jean about the Fatui making him persona non grata. Also, despite his disdain for the knights, he openly praises certain members like Jean, Lisa, and Eula, and even the Traveler who's technically who is technically a member. Other times there's just some moments where he just fully and openly shows that he is a very nice and considerate person. After saying that the Traveler's teapot home is not bad, he tries to clear things up and not offend them. He even tries to make small talk with them and makes a custom drink for the Traveler. Diona's bar, the Cat's Tail, is a competitor to his own bar, yet he still wishes the business well on the Cat's Tail messaging board. He covers some of his bartender Charles's shifts to give him days off, and during the Midsummer Island event he fully intends to go fishing with Glee. Anyways, here's just some more examples of him just being the best and really wholesome.
Alright, see you next time. I'll make sure you leave safely. You appear to be in good spirits. If I'm ever needed somewhere, just say the word. Don't hesitate. Me? My affairs are hardly worth discussion. Rather, I'm more concerned about your situation. Since arriving in Mondstadt, you have offered invaluable support to its people. This is their way of saying thank you. Working with you is quite the novelty, so I look forward to continuing to work with you, partner.
Despite my initial reluctance to sponsor a Knights of Favonius event in any way, I, like any other citizen of Mondstadt, owe Jean my gratitude for her hard work.
I used to believe if I was to stamp out evil, I would have to walk alone in darkness. However, seeing your perseverance, I know I was wrong. Friend, I owe you my thanks.
Diluc, as a very important person in Mondstadt and a noble, is every so often invited or hosts a gathering of rather illustrious and affluent guests, and quoting the official Genshin Impact website, as the wealthiest gentleman in Mondstadt, the ever-dapper Diluc always presents himself as the epitome of perfection. We get to see a glimpse of this in the manga. He presents himself quite properly and gentlemanly, and he's even briefly shown to be quite sociable. We see him talking to people and possibly even making small talk. So, he has a more exaggerated social persona that he puts on for show around certain people. Literally just more proof that he's just Batman. Speaking of Batman, let's talk about Diluc's more secretive side. His escapades as the Darknight Hero, a name that Diluc himself did not choose because his face curls up in disgust every time his name was uttered. Diluc simply thinks it's a stupid name. Anyways, Diluc, being the Darknight Hero, is very passionate and motivated. Every night he endeavors to defend Mondstadt. He is a zealous soul that is sworn to protect Mondstadt at all costs, allowing him to mercilessly vanquish all who threaten his city. He fights to dispel justice and retribution to the enemies of Mondstadt. He is swift and ruthless when dealing with his enemies, and would go as far as to even torture to gain information. Though his fiery determination can be seen as admirable, this has led Diluc down a path of almost fixation on the protection of Mondstadt. So much so that he can't see Rain without reacting in quite possibly the edgiest way possible.
Rain, if only you could cleanse the corrupt souls of this world.
Diluc in the teapot is always idly thinking about Mondstadt, his mission, new intel. Diluc even admits that the reason he looks unhappy and probably feels unhappy most of the time is due to him constantly thinking about the protection of Mondstadt and the evil of the world.
Unhappy? Nothing of the sort. I'm just thinking, observing, or planning. However, I appreciate your concern. I didn't mean to worry you. How perceptive of you. Yes, I am. Whether it's human avarice lurking in the shadows, or a conspiracy from outside the human world, evildoers are only waiting for us to let our guard down. This is not what you wanted to talk about, is it?
The reason he is so passionate in his goal is because his father always believed that the world will never turn its back on the faithful. Diluc saw his father's death as unjust, and the circumstances surrounding it even more so. He felt powerless, realizing he was unable to protect the things that he treasured most. After leaving Mondstadt for 3 years, he returned with an unshakable resolve to shoulder his father's will, the will to fight for Mondstadt, the will to fight for the sake of the future, and see the light of dawn dispelling the evil darkness, so that the world may never turn its back on the faithful again. When Diluc was younger and in the Knights, he was still a very dedicated person, but always had a warm smile and confident posture. He was very hardworking and would often be praised for his passion, but nothing made him happier than praise from his father. After his father's death and some other events, Diluc became the more closed-off individual hiding a kind soul we know today. Lastly, let's just go over some littler things about Diluc. Diluc enjoys having peace and quiet and is even bemused seeing people with an abundance of energy.
Where does she get the energy?
Another thing, contrary to what Kaya believes, Diluc does have a sense of humor. It's usually quite dry and sarcastic, but it's there.
The legend of the Darknight Hero. An interesting rumor.
Only the knights drink for free tonight. It seems he didn't get the message. When he sobers up, I will present him with the bill.
Diluc, you're a meanie.
I'm joking, of course. I highly doubt he could afford it anyway. Perhaps the knight's true calling is to be slime exterminators. Who knows? Domestic pest control may turn out to be a more valuable use of your resources.
Diluc ironically does not like alcohol, despite being amazing at making it. He doesn't like the taste and thinks it dulls his senses. He prefers grape juice. Diluc has been described as cautious and meticulous. He shows these traits quite well in his character quest, as he creates a thorough plan to distract the knights while he deals with the Abyss Order's attack. Diluc also likes doing things his own way, but is not opposed to letting others take a lead, others aiding him, or working in a team. He is also quite confident in his abilities, as he is fine with dealing with the Abyss Order's onslaught all by himself, and even says that dealing with them will be easy. He also plays chess, which is the universal sign for being intelligent, even if you're not very good at it. He had enough intuition and foresight to fill the angel share with his own people beforehand to further provide evidence for his alibi. Diluc is practical and says,
I see no reason to cling to things that have outlived their purpose.
This was his reasoning for selling his father's mansion, but he has shown to be somewhat sentimental. He keeps artwork collected by his father, and a vase that his brother Kaya gifted to him despite their rocky relationship. And to finish off, I want to read you the message Diluc left on the Cat's Tail message board, because I think it speaks volumes of Diluc's character. Even I sometimes reminisce the carefree and happy days of the past. The warmth of the nights, my friends, my father. Everything was perfect, but one can never return to the past. For the sake of the future, I cannot keep on dreaming in memories. Or should I say, someone has to wake up to face the darkness before dawn, so that others may continue to dream. Rationally, I think there are some things that one must let go of, yet emotionally, this is much harder to do. Sometimes my heart is agonized by this. Hope the business goes well. It's a battlefield out there in the liquor business.
No matter what dares to stand in my way, I must press forward.
So this is going to be a bit of a long ride, so I suggest maybe getting some popcorn or some snacks or something, or doing something else while you listen, because this is going to be quite a long section. So yeah, do whatever you need. Diluc hails from a very important family in Mondstadt history, the Ragnvindr family, or Ragnvindr. Their existence possibly dates back to the fall of Decorabian or the rise of Barbados 2,600 years ago. During this time, there was a red-haired man that had a striking resemblance to Diluc. This red-haired man was once a wanderer that came to settle in old Mondstadt. Mondstadt at this time was a single city surrounded by a wind barrier that barely anyone could pass through, trapping the citizens inside. The barrier was originally created by the Lord of the Tower, Decorabian, to protect the people of Mondstadt from the harsh blizzards created by Andreas, the Wolf of the North. But eventually in the closed city, Decorabian grew cruel, turned on the very people he tried to protect, became a tyrant trying to control his people's lives and ignoring their wants to be free. He became disconnected from his people, fully believing that the people of Mondstadt loved him and adored him despite his actions. Eventually, due to the tyrant god's actions, a group of individuals of extreme importance to Mondstadt rose up. This group contained the wind spirit known as Barbados, his nameless bard friend, Decorabian's archer lover, Amos, a knight most likely belonging to the Gunhildr clan, the first believers of Barbados. and our red-haired warrior. They came and stood before the tower that loomed like a sky-piercing lance, and vowed to shatter the rule of the tower's lone tyrant. The red-haired warrior was one of the first to spread the tale of the windbloom flower, a flower that would grow even in the most terrible conditions. This flower never truly existed, and the tale of the flower was used as a symbol and story to inspire those in the closed-off city to yearn and be free, and welcome the day when the storms blow no longer. Windbloom eventually became a secret code word used by those plotting a rebellion against Decorabian. The fate of the windbloom flower is to bloom under great pressure when the need to arise is most desperate. This fate will most likely never change, just like the fate of the Ragnvindr clan. They shall ever live in the darkness and bring forth the flame of dawn. Finally, the day of the rebellion came. War broke out in Mondstadt in the name of freedom. The battle raged on and took the lives of Amos and the nameless bard, but ultimately Decorabian fell, and the victorious Barbados ascended to godhood. And we all know the rest. With his newfound power, he took the shape of his bard friend and destroyed the wind barrier and blew away the ice and snow and even some of the mountains to reshape Mondstadt into what it is today. It's pretty strong, isn't he? For an unknown reason, after Barbados' ascension, the red-haired warrior turned his back on the new Animo god. The name of this warrior was lost to time, but his deeds are still remembered in song. After the establishment of New Mondstadt, Barbados, being the god of freedom, did not want to rule his people and let them choose their own path. Many years later, Mondstadt created an aristocracy with the Lawrence clan being the ruling class. The Lawrence clan grew corrupt and began to rule over the City of Freedom. They began to use slaves, making them participate in gladiator fights for their own amusement. They essentially took away Mondstadt's freedom. 1,600 years after Decorabian's fall, there was a knight squire named Ragnvindr. This was the first historical appearance of the family name. This squire obeyed the aristocrats, although he hated the suffering that was caused, but believed he would be unable to do anything. At one point, a group known as the Wanderers Troop tried to overthrow the aristocracy, but failed. One of the members among the group was a sword-wielding dancer, the owner of the flute sword. She would be sadly enslaved as a gladiator, but fought valiantly and was dubbed the moniker Dawnlight Swordswoman. A friendship blossomed between Ragnvindr and the swordswoman. The Dawnlight would tell stories and sing songs about freedom to anyone who would listen, and reignite Ragnvindr's resolve to fight against the cruel aristocracy. Unfortunately, the Dawnlight swordswoman would lose her life in the gladiator arena. Ragnvindr, inspired and moved by her, named himself the Dawn Knight in her honor. Eventually, the Animo Archon would once again come to the aid of Mondstadt, and help the legendary Lion Fang Knight Vanessa fight against her oppressors. Vanessa was joined in her endeavor by our Dawn Knight Ragnvindr and the Gunhildr clan. Vanessa's rebellion was successful and the aristocracy was finally overthrown. Vanessa then established the Knights of Favonius and became the first Grand Master and Dandelion Knight. At the same time, Ragnvindr turned the aristocrats' indoor baths into a library. This library still exists to this day and is the largest collection of literature in the northern half of the continent. After this, Ragnvindr, or one of his descendants, took an interest in winemaking and decided to create the Dawn Winery with the motto of Shine True. The winery has a significant hold in the Mondstadt alcohol industry and is renowned all across the world. The alcohol, especially the signature dandelion wine, is unmatched and known across all of Tibet. The Dawn Winery has been passed down through the generations of Ragnvindr. Eventually, it was passed down to Krepis Ragnvindr. Presumably, at one point, he met a woman, but basically nothing is known about this person. Krepis would eventually have a child and name him Diluc. Years after his birth, on a stormy night, a young boy and his father came to the Dawn Winery. The father and son hail from Conria. The boy's name was Kaya Alberic. His father stared at him with a look of both hatred and hope in his eyes as he said,
"This is your chance. You are our last hope."
Presumably his father leaves and Kaya is left at the Dawn Winery alone, until Krepis Ragnvindr welcomed him into his family. Krepis raised and cared for Kaya like he was his own son, and Diluc became a close friend and formed a brotherly bond with Kaya. When Krepis was young, he was unable to fulfill his own dream of becoming a knight. Krepis instead wished for Diluc to become the most esteemed knight of all and safeguard Mondstadt. Diluc trained intently to live up to the great name of Ragnvindr. His family had high hopes for him, and he lived up to them. When Diluc was 10 years old, he received his pyro vision. He joined the knights and became the youngest cavalry captain in history at only age 14. He was known across Mondstadt as a very passionate and hardworking person. Nothing made him happier than the praise he received from his father. At some point in time, Diluc meets Jean Gunhildr and was her superior within the knights. Also, somewhere along the timeline, Diluc had a pet tortoise, and Jean had one as well. Little bonus. Alright, time for the superhero origin story. One day, Diluc and his father were at the Angel Share bar. Krepis suggests for them to head home before it starts raining. The two of them begin riding home on their carriage. The father and son have a heart-to-heart. Krepis admits he wanted to become a knight but wasn't suited for the role, that Diluc succeeded where he failed. Diluc rebuttals his father by saying Krepis has helped Mondstadt in his own way. Krepis laughs and agrees and says one last time he is proud of his son, and mutters to himself saying that he won't need a mysterious glove. Suddenly, a horrific monster attacks the transport fleet they were traveling with. Diluc tried to fight it, but the monster overpowered the young cavalry captain. Diluc was helpless and unable to protect his father, until unpredictably Krepis came to his son's aid and defended him with an unknown evil power known as the Delusion. He fought the beast and defeated it, causing the monster to flee. Krepis came out victorious, but great power may come at grave consequences. Krepis fell to the ground. Diluc, seeing his father in unbearable agony, mercifully ended his own father's life. Kaya, along with the knights, arrived shortly. They witnessed Krepis fading away, disintegrating, backlash from this evil power. Later on, at the Knights of Favonius headquarters, an inspector of the knights orders Diluc to conceal the truth, saying that the knights would lose their credibility if they found out that a great monster was defeated by Krepis, calling him a mere businessman. This angers Diluc, and Irok responds,
"Fame and glory shall benefit the living, the dead have no use for them,"
and proceeds to mock Krepis's death. This sets Diluc off. He rips off his jacket and proclaims his resignation from the knights. Leaving, he reminds Irok that Mondstadt exists thanks to people like his father. It rained terribly that day, as if the heavens themselves grieved the loss of Krepis. Kaya knocked on Diluc's door. He had been keeping something from everyone. He was actually a spy sent from Conria, set in Mondstadt for his own interest. His birth father abandoned him so that he could fulfill a mission, but he was taken in by Krepis, who raised him like his own kin. Kaya for years was agonized by who he should align with, Conria or Mondstadt, the father who ruthlessly abandoned him, or the father that loved, cared, and raised him, his loyalty or duty. Until Krepis's demise, Kaya felt liberated, free from the pain of indecision, but stricken by shame at how he was responding. Consumed by guilt, Kaya told Diluc everything, finally coming clean. Diluc, in his emotional state, was consumed by burning rage. They both drew their blades. The brothers fought, and in that moment, elemental energy flowed through Kaya, and bitterly cold and brittle elemental energy burst forth from the tip of his sword, clashing with searing flames from Diluc's blade. The clash caused a swirl of wind that stunned them both, and suddenly Kaya's cryovision appeared. After this fight, Kaya and Diluc went their separate ways. Kaya decided to live the rest of his life under the heavy burden of lies. Diluc decided he wanted to leave Mondstadt entirely. Afterwards, Diluc hands over the responsibility of the Dawn Winery to a housemaid, discards his vision, and leaves Mondstadt to travel across all the 7 nations of Tibet. He brought along the delusion his father once used. He most likely used this to fight during his journey. He discovered that the evil power that destroyed his father has ties to an organization known as the Fatui. A delusion is a counterfeit vision that greatly increases power but has dire effects, as we well know. Diluc wanted to know how and why his father gained this strange item. Was it in order to do good? Diluc, like an eagle soaring the wilderness, set off on his hunt for the truth. Unbeknownst to him, the elite rulers of the Fatui, the Harbingers, monitored Diluc from the shadows. Diluc, in his search for the truth, laid waste to multiple Fatui strongholds. The Harbingers noticed his disruptions and were forced to intervene. They confronted Diluc. He almost lost his life to the Harbingers, but was saved thanks to a third-party observer. This mysterious observer was watching Diluc for a very long time, and belonged to an underground intelligence network. Diluc, after experiencing near death, looked back at his past and the anger he harbored for so long. He decided to join the intelligence network. Upon joining, he committed himself fully to his work, similar to his time in the Knights. His talent and determination made him quickly rise in the ranks of the network. The question arose, could working with these new comrades finally restore the faith he once clung to, the faith that had all been destroyed in the events surrounding his father's death? Could this reignite his resolve? 3 or 4 years after Diluc first left Mondstadt, he returned home and took control of the Dawn Winery. In the past years, Irok the Inspector was purged from the Knights after being outed as a traitor. The Grand Master of the Knights, Varka, left on an expedition. Jean, Diluc's old subordinate, had taken the role of acting Grand Master, and Kaya had assumed his old post as cavalry captain. Despite being of high esteem and importance to Mondstadt, Diluc's return was unnoticed due to the arrival of an anonymous guardian, a powerful fighter that became the unknown guardian of Mondstadt, who would leave the smell of burning in his wake, a protector who dealt with monsters that plagued Mondstadt for years. Captured captured and bound the most wanted thieves and eradicated abyss mages that committed countless crimes against Mondstadt. This guardian was dubbed the Darknight Hero, much to Diluc's chagrin. Subsequently, upon returning to the Dawn Winery, not being a fan of alcohol himself, Diluc asked the winery to develop several alcohol-free beverages, one of them being apple cider vinegar, which is on par with the success of the winery's famed dandelion wine. Diluc's disliking for wine is actually unknown to the general public, and most people come up with their own theories regarding why he's never seen drinking, such as his palate is so refined, normal drinks aren't good enough, or that drinking reminds him of his father. When pressed on the topic, Diluc says it clouds his judgment and impacts his day-to-day, confusing people, wondering what a winery master does in a day that doesn't require him take a single drop of alcohol. At one point, Snezhnayan merchants came with a special alcohol known as firewater, one of the strongest wines bartender Charles knows. The merchants were aiming to make a partnership with the Dawn Winery. At a banquet, as a show of good faith, the merchants gave Diluc a glass of firewater, and Diluc gave them some of his finest dandelion wine. To show his respect, Diluc followed the Snezhnayan custom and downed the entire bottle of firewater. The world began spinning for him. He maintained his calm and proper demeanor until the banquet ended, where he proceeded to pass out for the next 3 days. After regaining consciousness, Diluc rejected the Snezhnayan merchants' partnership and stopped importing firewater because, and I quote, "the people of Mondstadt can't handle this." Last little Diluc story, the winery often holds festivals from time to time, and it is routine that overzealous fathers would introduce their wonderful daughters to the young and single and very rich winery owner. The other guests are entertained by this and comment we'd much rather Master Diluc stayed married to the winery given how good his wine is. Diluc deals with all situations impeccably, no matter what comes his way. Diluc is a fine young gentleman in every conceivable respect. I mean, you have to be if you're described as the epitome of perfection. Now, we're moving on to the final section of the history portion, manga events, but we're only focusing mainly on Diluc's part and trying to keep other plot points a little vague, so if you haven't, you can still read the manga without being spoiled too much, because, I'm not just gonna read the manga out to you. Well, unless you want me to. Anyhow, our story begins at a lavish gathering at the Dawn Winery held by Diluc. The attendees include members of the Mondstadt Wine Guild and the Knights of Favonius. While the party continues, Diluc is introduced to a man named Krupp, who he seems to be previously acquainted with. Krupp brought along a guest, El Dottori, one of the 11 Fatui Harbingers, or El Dottori in my normal accent. Sorry for the pronunciation as well if it's bad. The Harbinger demands an audience with the Seneschal of the Church of Favonius, Seamus Pegg. Seamus appeared, saying that there is no need to bother the head of the manor, and asked Diluc for a private place to converse. Diluc agrees on the condition that he is allowed to sit in on their conversation. They head to the meeting chamber at Diluc Manor. Kaya also decides to join the meeting. Krupp says that the Fatui would like to expand their ranks and ask for recruits from Mondstadt. He asks specifically for the youths of Mondstadt to be recruited into the Fatui and trained to become heroes. Kaya refutes this by saying this sounds like a blood tax paid with the lives of our children, and the discussion does not go much further. After this, Diluc suggests for them to go back to the party and delay the negotiations. The Harbinger, upset at the delay, insults Diluc, and he sarcastically apologizes for the poor reception. When they leave, Diluc and Seamus have a conversation about the reputation of the Fatui, taking children and never returning them, resolving to not give in to their demands. Seamus then laments, saying that we should have done more to keep the innocent people safe, that Diluc should still be with the knights, and that Diluc's father should not die in vain. At the party, Kaya directs Krupp to the manor's vineyards. Krupp in the vineyards says aloud that he will steal Mondstadt's wine and children and teach them to not cross the Fatui. Suddenly, he is stabbed in the hand with a projectile, and Diluc, disguised, drops down. He easily knocks down 2 guards, binds Krupp with chains created by his delusion, and interrogates Krupp about a boy named Anthony that was recruited into the Fatui and never returned. Before he could get any information, Krupp is killed by the Tory. The Harbinger says that Krupp's breach of confidential information results in immediate removal, like a fly. The Harbinger then becomes interested in Diluc's delusion, calling it a vision. He also tells Diluc to hone his unimpressive power and that he has potential. Diluc returns to the party in his normal attire, where Seamus informs us that the Tory just dropped his request and left. The next day, the knights are escorting a carriage departing from Mondstadt, until suddenly the carriage is attacked by a serpent made of what looks to be black fire. This event was titled the Black Fire Incident, and the knights begin investigating this. Kai goes to see Diluc at his manor and tells him about the incident and describes the black flames, comparing them to the flames of his delusion. This shocks Diluc and causes him to throw a dart at a vase, breaking it, prompting Kaya to say that he will come back with a new vase. Later on, the Knights connect the Blackfire incident to Crepus's death and believe that these events may have the same culprit. Lisa then asks Diluc about the events 3 years ago. Diluc obliges and recounts the story of his father's demise. The Knights come to the conclusion that the Fatui were ultimately responsible for the death of Crepus. In chapter 13, Kaya pays another visit to Diluc, this time at the Angel Share. Diluc gives Kaya some grape juice, as Kaya asks Diluc to take the fall for the Blackfire incident, for reasons that you would know if you read the manga. Whoa! Why do I sound like a ghost? Where am I going with this joke? Anyhow, Diluc agrees and later on attacks Kaya with some Fatui guards present. Diluc is pursued and ends up at Star Snatch Cliff, where a giant monster is attacking Amber and a little girl. Diluc uses his power to help by creating dark chains which constrain the monster, which gives Amber an opening to fire a charge shot and defeat the giant monster. Kaya and the Fatui agents finally catch up to Diluc and capture him. Diluc later escapes, leaving his mask and delusion behind. Afterwards, Diluc is seen tending to the Angel Share, where Kaya pays him another visit. Diluc this time gives him actual alcohol. Kaya then gives Diluc a brand new vase, compensating for the one that Diluc broke earlier. Unbeknownst to him, within the new vase is his old pyro vision he discarded. Presumably after, Diluc finds his vision and begins using it again to defend Mondstadt as its new guardian, the Darknight Hero. And the rest, as they say, is history. Well, it's in the game, and I mean, you know, I'm assuming you've played the game and the quests and all the. I mean, you probably could watch this video without playing the game, but no, that would be kind of strange.
Seeing your perseverance, I know I was wrong. Friend, I owe you my thanks.
Diluc's relationship with his father was filled with unyielding admiration, respect, and love from both parties. Crepus is one of the reasons Diluc has such a strong drive for justice and dispelling evil. Through his father's raising, Diluc was a happy child, always having a warm smile and confident posture, and was so passionate in his goal of safeguarding Mondstadt. Diluc would never be prouder than when his father praised him. When Crepus passed away, Diluc felt empty. His fiery passion, hopes, and dreams extinguished. Diluc felt powerless and his faith was shattered. But after his voyage beyond Mondstadt, he came back with an unshakable resolve to shoulder his father's will and protect others as his father wanted him to, as his father did for him. When they were young, they were absolutely inseparable. They were each other's closest friends, companions, brothers, and some of the most eye-catching gentlemen in Mondstadt, meaning they are both canonically good-looking. So, yeah. Sorry. However, after their fight, they drifted apart, and their relationship is now filled with snide and sarcastic remarks. More comedic on Kaya's side and more annoyed and irritated on Diluc's side. Kaya describes them both as anti-heroes with attitude problems, but their attitude is only a big problem when they're around each other. They both argue and mock each other basically every time they interact, so basically like normal siblings. Diluc is still quite distrustful of Kaya after, he spilt the beans, and in the aftermath, Kaya decided he needed to keep his secrets for the rest of his life. Despite their tense relationship, they sometimes slip up and soften for a few brief moments. In an echoing conch, Kaya reminisces about when they were younger and collected seashells. During Venti's story, we see them having a drink together, and during this, Diluc advises Kaya to drink responsibly, and Diluc keeps the vase that Kaya gifted to him. Jean. During their time in the Knights, Diluc was an extremely passionate and hard worker. This most likely caused Jean to have a great deal of respect and admiration towards Diluc, so much so that to this day, she still refers to Diluc as her superior, even though he's not in the Knights anymore, and she would outrank him even if he still was. Despite Jean being a Knight, and actually the head of the Knights of Favonius, Diluc still holds a great amount of respect for her as well. He thinks Jean hasn't even found her true calling yet, even as the acting Grand Master. When Diluc invites Jean to his bar, he says that Jean came as herself instead of the acting Grand Master, and even goes as far as to say this is a side of Jean the Traveler wouldn't be able to see even as an honorary knight. They are quite familiar with each other, and from what we've seen, they seem very natural and casual around each other. Diluc speaks quite highly of Lisa, saying that she could be the most reliable of the knights if you wanted. And when asked about Diluc, Lisa says that you should ask someone else if you want to know about Diluc, which I think is either Kaya or Jean, but in all honesty, it could literally be anyone. They haven't interacted much outside of this, but in the manga, Diluc is willing to tell Lisa about the events of his father's death to help her with the knight's investigation. Klee thinks Diluc is strange for not smiling often and refers to him as
The weird grown-ups.
We don't really know Diluc's opinion on Klee, but from the small interactions we've seen, he seems to just begrudgingly go along with her antics and even intends to go fishing with her. Although, if you look at the events of the Midsummer Island story, spoilers I guess for a story that you can't play anymore, Klee's mother Alice decides to plan this adventure to these islands for Klee, and she invites the Traveler, Jean, Barbara, Kaya, Razor, Albedo, and Diluc. Klee has a very friendly and nice relationship to everyone there, except for seemingly Diluc, and there are other characters that have good relationships with Klee, like Lisa or Amber, but Alice decides to invite Diluc, and she later says to Klee that this event is for Klee and those who love her, so there may be more of a relationship between Diluc and Klee that we aren't aware of, but Alice is aware of. Maybe Klee reminds Diluc of a younger version of himself. He used to be all bright, energetic, and always smiling too, you know, before life hit him like a flaming truck made out of misery. Eula. Another knight Diluc speaks quite highly of. He says her determination and conviction is praiseworthy, but was disappointed when she joined the knights. Sadly, I don't speak Eula, so I don't 100% know what she thinks of Diluc. She could, you know, genuinely mean this, or like the complete opposite. I'm pretty sure she likes Jean, so comparing Diluc to her could mean Eula likes him too, but he does act aloof a lot, so maybe she doesn't. I don't know. I want to be optimistic and say they'd probably get along. Diona. Diluc is puzzled by Diona's disliking towards him and plans to speak to her about her rigid attitude towards him. He is pleasantly surprised to find another bartender in Mondstadt that doesn't like alcohol like himself. Diona says that she dislikes Diluc, but in actuality she hates alcohol and wine and associates Diluc with these things. She hates alcohol because her father neglects her to go drink. Venti. Diluc is one of the few in Mondstadt that know about Venti's true identity, and the relationship probably consists of Venti badgering Diluc for wine while Diluc gets more annoyed. Venti has stolen bottles from his bar and tried to pilfer food from the Dawn Winery, but despite this, Diluc chooses to not charge Venti for the obscene amount of drinks he had, and still respects him as the Animal Archon, calling Mondstadt bountiful by the grace of the Animal Archon. Venti is also aware of Diluc's current relationship with Kaya, sarcastically remarking about this during the Windbloom Festival. Mona. They most likely don't know each other personally and only know about each other as much as being in the same city gets them. Diluc says that there's no need for astrologers, and Mona uses her power to see information about Diluc, correctly pinning him as
A lone guardian keeping watch.
Rosaria. They both seem to know or have an inkling about their more vigilant activities, and Rosaria enjoys a good drink, so they must see each other quite frequently. Barbara. She thinks he doesn't like her singing because he frowns a lot, and we don't really know what Diluc thinks about her. They barely interact. Albedo. They know the other exists. They haven't interacted much. They don't have voice lines for each other. Albedo just leaves when Kaya and Diluc argue, which I think is pretty funny, but that's about it. Razor. Razor describes Diluc as red and black, hot and cold, most likely due to his appearance and flames, but his colder attitude. They haven't interacted much as well. Varka. Not much is known about his relationship with the Grand Master. He says that he understands his character, but can't make any sense of his actions, but seems pretty hesitant to talk about this because he isn't a member of the Knights anymore. From his voice line, he doesn't really seem to dislike Varka, despite him being the head of the Knights, and Diluc would usually find any excuse to critique the Knights. So Varka may be similar to Jean, Lisa, or Eula, where their character outshines their affiliation, and Diluc still believes that they're deserving of respect.
Power is necessary if we are to meet our objectives.
Diluc has a pyrovision, ergo he has the ability to manipulate fire and flames, imbuing his weapon with flame for a searing onslaught, creating a flaming phoenix. He can shoot fire from his hands, he can surround himself in shrouds of flame, send a blast of fire, and he most likely has some resistance, or can control his flame's temperature or movement to not burn him. With his delusion, he was able to create chains wrapped in black flames to bind or attack. Diluc has superhuman attributes. Sayu's voice line implies visions amplify the user's strength, and Diluc is quite strong, being able to use his claymore with one hand and throw it around like it's made out of paper mache or something. He's also strong enough to either knock out or straight up kill these hilly churls with one shot, because they don't look like they're getting up. His leg muscles must also be increased because he can jump pretty high. He also has this super useful, invaluable ability to reduce stamina used during charged attacks. That's like the main source of his power. He's like useless without this ability. Diluc is quite acrobatic and agile, being able to swiftly evade attacks even while in midair. Adding on to that, he has superhuman speed, being able to weave around the battlefield in quick and rapid succession, and also leave the scene quickly after dealing with a threat as the Darknight Hero. He is an extremely skilled fighter, considered one of the best in Mondstadt. He can effortlessly deal with hordes of enemies on a daily basis, and took down multiple Fatui strongholds, the Fatui being the strongest military in all of Tibet. He could have some sort of slight telekinesis, as he can throw around his claymore and recall it, and also makes it appear out of thin air. He has incredible endurance, going out on a nightly basis defending Mondstadt from evil while running and maintaining the most lucrative business in Mondstadt, and almost never being suspected as the Darknight Hero. I don't really know when he would be able to go to sleep, honestly, because, you know, he's running the Dawn Winery, and sometimes he takes shifts at the Angel Share, and then when night happens, he goes out and becomes Batman, so like, yeah, he probably doesn't sleep much. Lastly, Diluc makes some pretty good alcohol. He's very skilled in the craft and in mixing drinks, and this is technically an ability and a skill, so it's worth mentioning. I mean, I mentioned forging a signature last time, so to my weird vague rules, this counts. Diluc's... Oh, I hit the mic.
I've become stronger. Though it is still not enough, I will always face the darkness.
Alright, on to a little more of a familiar topic. How strong is Diluc? Diluc is described as unmatched in every possible way and is merciless, ruthless, and freaking badass like nobody's business in dealing with enemies. It is hotly debated who is the strongest fighter in Mondstadt, Diluc, the Darknight Hero, or Jean, the Dandelion Knight. The Traveler and Paimon even get in on this debate, and the Traveler thinks Diluc would win. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna side with the possibly centuries-old interdimensional Traveler who has probably been in countless battles, but I don't know, maybe Paimon will be revealed as a god of some sort and know better. But right now, I'm still siding with the Traveler, but even still, the fact that there is a debate means that these two are quite similar in terms of power, which makes sense as they both did start training at a very young age and most likely had the same or similar Knights of Favonius training, so I think it's fair that I can apply some of Jean's feats to Diluc. Notably, Jean once moved so fast that Amber wasn't even able to comprehend her moving. Another one, Jean once took down 5 Rune Guards at once and was probably even trying to hold back because she was saddened having to destroy them, calling the Rune Guards precious artifacts. The two of them plus the Traveler and Venti also took down Dvalin together. Back to Diluc, he is considered a major threat to the Abyss Order, so much so that they declared war on him and sent a coordinated attack that Diluc effortlessly dealt with. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that after this fight, the Traveler is like apparently visibly sweating and tired, like Huffman says that they are, but he doesn't notice anything about Diluc, not even like visibly a little sweaty or something like that. So this fight actually might have put a strain on the Traveler, but was like nothing to Diluc. It's not really too big of a deal because the Traveler at this time hadn't really done anything too impressive, like just helping defeat Dvalin, that was about it. But still, I think it's worth mentioning. Also, on an unrelated note, after he defeats the Abyss Order, I think he might have incinerated their bodies, because unless the knights really are just that useless, they somehow didn't notice a huge pile of corpses at the front gates of Mondstadt. So wouldn't it kind of make sense that he just burnt them all to ash? Just something to think about. I don't know. This one's a little bit more speculative, but Diluc once said that the Abyss is more than just a few mages, and after defeating the attack sent by the Order, he said nothing more than a few hilly trolls. Kind of implies he equates mages to basically being hilly trolls, meaning he could have faced off against more powerful Abyss enemies such as Abyss Lecterns or Heralds. Again, speculative, but I don't think it's that far of a stretch because Diluc has traveled all across Tibet. He is considered a threat to the Fatui, the strongest military in the world. He laid waste to numerous Fatui strongholds, so much so that the elite, high-ranking, strongest members of the Fatui, the Harbingers, had to step in. Now in Diluc's story, it says Harbingers plural, so that could either mean 2 or all of them. We well know how strong one Harbinger is. Now imagine multiple, again 2 or all of them. He's considered that big of a threat, and he does narrowly escape death, but even surviving an encounter with multiple Fatui Harbingers, again 2 or all of them, is impressive, and Diluc is probably actually stronger than he was then. He was very angry and more reckless back then, and now Diluc is a lot more focused and calm and deals with threats more rationally, carefully, and intelligently. And also this encounter probably happened a number of years ago. He's also likely pretty fast. Speed is kind of a hard thing to determine in Genshin, well, canonical speed, but most likely a large majority of characters are at least faster than lightning, as they have most likely faced off against someone or something that controls Electro. Lastly, worth mentioning, Diluc is consistently honing and constantly improving his skills on the day-to-day during his venture as the Darknight Hero. So to recap how strong Diluc is, he is considered one of the strongest in Mondstadt, deals with threats to the city on a daily basis, helped defeat Dvalin, and is considered a big threat to two of the most powerful organizations on the planet. So yeah, pretty strong. Well, there you have it. There's a lot of info on Diluc, who, if you couldn't tell, is one of my favorite characters in Genshin. I honestly think a big aspect of why is because I really like Batman. I grew up watching a lot of Batman stuff, and he's probably my favorite superhero. Well, maybe Spider-Man. It's kind of torn. And I don't know, I'm a bit of a sucker for, the characters with a tougher, colder demeanor, but actually have a heart of gold underneath, and, is very nice. And Diluc is actually so nice and kind. People just seem to forget and think he's grumpy like 24/7, that's all. Another reason I like him so much is because he was my first 5-star, and man does he love me, because I have him at C4. So maybe this video is just pure copium. We'll never know. And sometimes you just can't help but favor the cool, badass, edgy characters that have been through so much but rise above the pain and channel it to make the world a better place. I think there's a lot to like. I like his outfit. Man is dripped. Red is my favorite color, so is hair and eyes. He also has a pretty simple playstyle, just big, easy damage. He also likes birds, which I find endearing. He always smiles when he sees his falcon, and his mask and throwing weapons have an owl motif. I guess bats were taken. Actually, I guess owls are taken as well. And his father used to paint birds as well, so that's probably a little homage to him. I think his connection to the Fatui is interesting and will probably be explored in the future. And in his collected miscellany, Dainsleif says,
"But if the disaster from 5 centuries ago were to happen again, if he were to face the same evil that I once did, would he still hold fast to his resolve?"
I'm pretty sure that's foreshadowing to something. Also, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of love it when he just goes off on something like the Knights. Lastly, I just really love how appropriate his vision is. Pyro is perfect for him. He has all the traits of a pyro user, the passion, dedication, etc. But it's really fitting because his whole deal is Dawn. He is the Dawn Knight, someone who is meant to fight in the darkness to light it up. And what better light than the bright flames of a pyro vision? And even more than that, what light is more appropriate than humanity's first source of light and warmth? Fire. Of course, Diluc, despite his talents, cannot light up the darkness alone. The burning passion of ardent flames may only go so far in solitary. They are not enough to shine through the inscrutability of the night, but he must continue on his lone journey. Someone must face off against the endless turmoil of nightfall, because, for dawn to come, there must be those who dare to pierce the darkness with their light.